everyone. I think I'm only on YouTube right now. Let me know in the chat if you're seeing this and hearing me okay. Well, welcome to Mosaic Monday. I hope this is working. I am new to the technology I'm using today. So thank you for hanging in there with me and giving this a try. Um, I'm hoping I can see some comments in the chat soon. Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, well, welcome to Mosaic Monday. Today I'm going to be working on a project I started a couple weeks ago. I started Mosaic Mondays on Instagram, and my intention is to stream this live today to Instagram and Facebook. So I hope it's working out. I don't have anyone. Oh, thank you, Wanda. Oh, good. Wanda, where are you watching from? It doesn't show me. Yes, okay, good. I'm seeing your comments. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's very reassuring. I was practicing all weekend to make sure I had all of these tech buttons lined up correctly. Okay, well, welcome. I am starting these Mosaic Mondays as a way to connect more with you all and share my work. I've been sharing my process in highly edited reels and little videos, capturing the best moments of hours and hours of work and editing it down into 1 minute. So I think sharing a little bit more behind the scenes of how my work really comes together would be fun. So I did two on Instagram last month because we're already in February, crazy. So in January, I did two on Instagram, and I wasn't sure how they were being received. But then in my last studio class, I had a couple ladies come in, and Lori they and Kathy, hello if you're watching. So they mentioned they had watched the lives, and it gave them so much confidence coming into class that they felt they could make the mosaic project we were going to work on together. So that was very encouraging and just motivated me to keep going. So today I've put together a little more intention behind what I'm going to work on, because I've just been kind of winging it, which I'm still going to do. It's going to be very spontaneous, and we'll just see where it takes us. But I have a little kind of mosaic Valentine in progress, and I think I'll be able to finish it today. I have kind of an idea of where I'm going to take it, which should be kind of faster moving than my normal little tiny delicate work. So, but we'll see. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Shara. It's spelt, it looks different from the way it's spelled, but it is pronounced Shara, and I'm in Minneapolis, very snowy here. I'm a mom of three. They're all in school today, so I have the whole place to myself. It's pretty quiet. In a couple weeks, we don't have school, so I've put on the schedule for Mosaic Mondays which dates I will be, because not every Monday is a guarantee. If we don't have school, I will not be live because there's too much risk with three kids and two dogs to do lives. So I'm just reading your comments. Thank you for I think this is Jan. Thanks for the feedback. That's great to hear that you've been watching the lives too. So I plan to continuously work on a singular project for each live, so you can kind of see the progression, and not each live will be a completion of a homemade mosaic, but just working ourselves through the beginning to the end progressively. And if you are new here and you're looking for links to all the supplies and things that I use, I have a really great freebie guide that you can download and have all the links that you need to access. Oh, Wanda, I see that you're on YouTube. Oh, that's good to know. I'm not sure if it's working on Facebook and Instagram actually, so I'll have to look into that for next time. But if you want the freebie, it's there's a word, a trigger word you can comment on Instagram and Facebook, but it's not going to work for YouTube. But it is in my links somewhere in my bio. So if you want the freebie guide, it's linked in my bio. Otherwise, I can post a link in the description after. So I'll just get into it. How about we start? So I'm going to switch my camera. I've set up my camera and we're going to have a tabletop view now. So this is what I'm working on today, and I've spread out all of my favorite supplies. I think that when you're working with supplies like this, it's impossible to have a bad day. It's just the best ever. So I have my favorite seed beads here and some findings. So these are just some faux pearls in different colors. Lots of rhinestones in different shapes and colors. So when I'm working, I just like to pull everything around me and just have a little bit of everything at the ready so that I don't have to get up and walk around my studio and kind of hunt things down when my adhesive is activated and setting up. So I try to pull everything in close to me, but I do end up kind of, meandering a little bit now and then. So, but we have some wiggle room, so that's fine. I've been collecting mosaic supplies for a long time, so this wasn't all just stuff I got like all at once. I'll just do a little scan of my whole table so you can see a bit more. But it's a collection over many years. I started making mosaics over 20 years ago, so some of these rhinestones I've actually had that long, like these ones, for example, I think. Um, but a lot of them are newer too. I'm always replenishing, and especially since I became more of a supplier in addition to teaching, I'm constantly freshening up my inventory. So this is a new chain I recently picked up, which is a bit bigger than I normally work with. I've been working a lot smaller lately with my smaller frames, but it's still a really good size. So I like the chain. The chain is really great for beginners because they're not loose beads like rhinestones, and like beads like this, when they're on a string, they could easily start falling off the string. So with a rhinestone chain, everything's just kind of locked in there, and then you can push them together and pull them back apart if you need them to, you know, work in a space more tightly or fill out a space. You can spread them out. So rhinestone chain is such a great way to get that beaded look if you're not quite ready to start working with beads. And of course you can get it in different sizes, and then there's like a pearl chain too. You have to be a little careful with some of the pearl finishes, but overall really fun. So like I mentioned, I started this heart mosaic a couple weeks ago, and this is what I'm going to work on today. So with the theme of Valentine's Day, I have some loose seed beads that's spilt in here. And I have a couple pieces that popped out, so I'm going to repair these spaces that, the mirror just came out because I use the adhesive sparingly. I don't want any of it squishing out beyond. So sometimes I have to go back in and just touch things up. So I'll do that first. And this is what the frame looked like before I started. I design and manufacture these frames, and I'll grab a couple more to share. But these are so great for mosaics. They're like a coloring book for mosaic. They have that built-in edge and instant frame, so you can just fill in with texture and color and get right to the fun part. Something that makes mosaics a little bit tricky is when you bring the material to the edge, is how to keep it tidy and keep the pieces from falling off. So this one I did go a little bit up and beyond the edge, which makes these mirror pieces a bit more vulnerable because they are standing up and out. But overall, the mosaic is pretty much tucked in. So a lot of times people ask me why I don't paint or stain my frames, and I have a few reasons for that. One is just aesthetically, I really love how subtle and sophisticated the wood grain looks, and I give it a shiny sealant treatment when I'm finished with the mosaic, and I actually go over the entire mosaic with it. So the sealant I use is called Minwax, and this is our little, in my shop, so I have a shop.sharafrank.com on my website. We have a grout bundle, and so it's like the finishing materials and tools needed. And we include a little bottle of Minwax, a sponge, gloves, and a little bag of grout. So the Minwax I put on the sponge, and I just sponge it over the entire mosaic and on the frame, and it gives it all just a nice glow and finishing touch. So I usually keep my frames unfinished. That's one reason. And then another reason is that I'm not always sure where my mosaic is going to go. And I think that it's best to seal or paint your frame before your mosaic starts. And I'm not always certain where it's going to go. So if I painted this, let's say purple, and then at the end I didn't want it to be purple, it would be hard to change it. So I just kind of feel like it's a restriction committing to a color before starting. Oops, these pieces I popped out to recut, so I'm going to glue those back in. But so for that too, so that's the second reason. And then my last reason for not painting my frames is because when I'm teaching, I feel that it just looks better and it's easier to follow along when the frame is unfinished. So that's just another kind of random reason, which might not apply to everybody else, but for me it works. So if you wanted to paint your substrate, any kind of substrate beyond, frames like what I have, it would be best to do that before starting your mosaic, because if you try to paint after your mosaic is finished, you could easily get paint on your material, which could get really messy. So, but if you wanted to paint a frame like this, you could use acrylic paint. I use a spray paint we do these mini floral classes, and we spray paint those frames, and that looks really clean and nice. There's so many different kinds of spray paint you can get now with chalk paint, enameled paint, all kinds of finishes. So that works, and then also just different sealants. It could be a natural wood color that looks pretty too. So that's the substrate, and like I said, I designed these, and then I have them made by a local company here in Minnesota. I work with these two dads, and they run their own cabinet making shop, and they have the machinery I need for cutting these frames. And we have a small hobby-sized machine to cut these in my home, in my garage, that we use for our prototypes. But for large quantities, I need a larger one. So they have those, and they cut my frames for me. And then so my frames go through many hands before they reach my customers. They start with me designing, and we go through prototypes, and then they're cut at the shop, and then we bring them back to our shop and we sand them down, and then we pack them. And so they go through probably 4 people before they reach my customer, and I just love that there's so much care and intention in every one. I could, have them manufactured overseas or something, but I just feel so committed personally to making sure that they stay local and just kind of a small business oriented. Okay, so for my adhesive today, I'll continue using what I started with, and that is epoxy clay. So you can see in here, I tinted it. It's kind of a pink color. And and if you're just joining, I have a supply guide. I'll link that later. But if this is working on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm not confident it is, I only saw it said streaming on one source, so I'm guessing that's YouTube. But if it is working on Facebook and Instagram, or you could just pop over there and comment supplies on any of my posts, and it will send you a link to my free guide that has all the links to what I'm using here today. And spontaneously, I pulled together, I went over to my shop last night to see if we offered a kit for this project, would we be able, how many could we supply? So we do have a limited number of kits that we can supply for this project, and I'll tell you how you can order that at the end. But I just need to make sure I see where this goes. But I'm thinking I'm going to use this ceramic flower piece that this is vintage, and I don't know what it was originally used for. I think maybe some kind of, I don't know, like a little figurine, but it has these loops on the back. Oh, you can pull them right off. They're like little plastic loops. So I'm not sure. Maybe it was some kind of barrette or jewelry piece. Anyway, those popped right off, easy. But I think this might be a fun centerpiece to build from and have kind of a three-dimensional. I'm thinking of Valentine's Day cards, of how they're lacy and they have dimension, and sometimes they're kind of, pop-up book-like. I was reminiscing about Valentine's Day with my daughter because her classroom is planning their Valentine's Day party, and that was one of my favorite things as a kid growing up, is just baking my Valentine's Day box and planning the little Valentine's Day cards and all the little treats. It's such a fun, tactile holiday. So I think mosaic is a great way to tie in some of those qualities of the Valentines, the old-fashioned Valentines, with a mosaic Valentine. So that's kind of my idea. The direction for this is just that lacy kind of old-fashioned, maybe part dessert, like kind of candy-like, and then that vintage, just cozy quality of like that feeling you have when you're with all your friends and having your Valentine's Day party or a little tea party or something. Oh, George is barking at a squirrel. So never mind him if you can hear that. Okay, so we're using epoxy clay today. Lots of my longtime students know that I used epoxy sculpt for many, many years. These days, the last, I would say 6 or so years, I've been using epoxy clay. So epoxy clay is a lot softer, and it comes in a white and a brown. So I use white, and then I add pigment to it. So that's how I got this pink color in here. And so I'm going to just mix a little marble size because, well, actually, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to mix a bigger amount because it will last an hour after mixing, and I don't plan to be on here longer than that. So I need to figure out how to set my camera so it doesn't drift around. But I will go in closer. I trust that you're all hearing me okay because no one said anything about my sound. So it's not showing that I'm live on Instagram. Thanks for checking. Okay. Well, I'll just have to, I did post a link to them in my stories, so I'm hoping that they'll find their way to that, which I think that carries over to Facebook, so they should find that on Facebook too, maybe. I will get there. all this technology, just that I'm on YouTube alone is a big deal right now because I've never done a live on YouTube. And I actually just started up my YouTube channel. It was sitting quiet for many, many years, and I just started reposting all of my reels into the YouTube Shorts about a month ago, and so that really kicked things off on YouTube. So now I'm just a little more motivated to keep going here, and I like how they save the recordings in a way where it's easier to find them, where on Instagram and Facebook, it's not the case. Okay, so I have 2 equal parts of my A and B epoxy clay, and I'm going to mix it together thoroughly. So this takes a couple minutes. You want to mix it together thoroughly because if it's not mixed well, it won't cure. After mixing it, you have about an hour, a good hour of work time with it for mosaics anyway. There is a graph on the back that says easy to work with for up to 2 hours. Oh, they changed it on this one. Easy to work with and shape for 1 hour. On the bigger one, it says 1 to 2 hours. Um, but yes, so for 1 hour, I'm glad they changed that because for us, yes, the first hour is optimal for working with beads and tile and such. So I use epoxy clay whenever I'm using fine, delicate materials. When I'm working primarily with china and bigger, heavy-duty pieces like this one, I'm planning to adhere all of these china pieces down into the wings using thin set. So thin set is, I'll grab my little bag. This is, we have an adhesive bundle in my shop. So you got the thin set and then a bag of epoxy clay, and diamond glaze is another adhesive I use a lot. So the thin set is what I use for the china. The epoxy clay is what I use for any of the fine delicate material. And then the diamond glaze, that's another thing, but I'll demonstrate that later. So the epoxy clay I mix and then I add my color. And it's not necessary to add color if you just want to use it white to keep it simple, that's just fine. But I usually will mix my color in to complement my material. And also I like to match it up to the color of my tile that I'm working with. So had I matched the clay to this blue tile, which I kind of wish I would have done because it would have made this part look a little more seamless. So blending in the gaps, the kind of grout lines but it's okay to have it look a little bit more fractured too. I'm just not used to that. I'm used to blending my, like this, just having a little bit more of a blended look where this is there's more emphasis on the spaces between. So it's a preference and there's not a wrong way. Some people like to have contrast in their grout lines. That's like an artistic choice. So I used to grout everything I made in black. A lot of you probably remember that. So, oh yeah, Wanda, thanks for checking. Yeah. Oh well, they'll find. I've told them all to come over to YouTube if there's a tech issue. So, hopefully that will help them find their way. I'll have to have next time I will have some backup support in my accounts to help me out with helping people find me. And I'll figure out how to lock my camera here so it doesn't move around. Okay, so I got this mixed together. Now I can add my color. And I keep a little tin of my paints, and I love finding ways to keep things that we use a lot of in fun containers. So like my paints I keep in this tin, my disposable gloves I keep in this tissue box. So just the things that are always sitting out, I just try to find ways to make them a little bit more special. Okay, so I'm going to use the Scarlet Red oil paint. That's what I used last time. And there's not really a specific formula for tinting your clay. I just add color until I'm satisfied. So you can't really overdo it. But if you wanted a really dark red, I don't know if that would be possible. You might have to use, I use another pigment called Mixel Tints. That one's at my studio where I teach classes, but that one is a little bit more potent, so that would likely be the best way to go if you wanted to get a really dark red or dark pink. But most of all, it's not really going to be seen. It's just the backdrop behind your material. So it's not really so crucial to get, the perfect color. But so I'm usually just aiming for like the general idea of the color I want. I don't spend, too much time on perfecting the color of my clay. I probably made way more than I need. The clay actually goes a lot further than it looks. It will cover quite a bit of surface area, and it is more expensive than other adhesives, but the way it makes the work so much more enjoyable and easier, so it's well worth the cost. And when I break it down cost per project, it ends up about $4 to $5 per project, like my sized projects. So with an 8 by 10, I work a lot smaller these days than I used to. I used to do really big. I used to think, go big or go home. Like, if you're not going to make something that really, stands out as a showstopper, why bother? I had a lot more space to fill those days. I had big studio spaces with events, and so I always wanted to have, I was making these giant mirrors that would just fill up big walls, and that was really fun. But I don't know, those pieces don't really, I could see maybe doing a big one like that every once in a while, but today I really like making these small ones, and they're just so much more portable. I don't need any help moving them around, and I can, if I wanted to sell them, I can sell them for a lot less per item, which means I can share my work with more people. And if I end up storing them, they don't take up so much space, where my other big pieces, if I had to store them, it was always kind of a big hassle figuring out where they were going to live. Okay, so this is my mix of clay. I'm just going to change my gloves because I'm going to spread the clay onto my project now, and I don't want the paint from my gloves to get onto my frame. But I think the paint is pretty well mixed into the clay at this point, so it probably shouldn't transfer, but I also don't want to touch the clay too much right now without gloves on, because I like to minimize contact as much as possible directly with the clay. It's sticky, and it will leave a residue on your hands that will then transfer onto your mosaic material. So it keeps your mosaic looking a lot cleaner when you wear your gloves when you're spreading it out. So I'm just going to move my table down a bit. Okay, so I'm going to roll a coil of the clay, and I just tuck it right up next to the material I left off with. So it's going right into that seam. And I really like working with coils because I have a lot of control over how deep I'm building it, how thick it is in the frame, and how wide it spreads. But I could fill in this whole open area, but since I'm not really sure where this is going to go, I'm not going to do that, because what if I don't fill it all in today, and I would have to remove all that clay. So I'm not going to do that. You have to remove any clay that you don't use, because it will dry completely hard as a stone. Well, maybe not quite that hard, like you can carve it away, but it dries very hard. So you don't want it to dry anywhere where you plan to add more mosaic, because it will be completely in the way. Okay, so I got that done, and I forgot to touch up that little spot that fell out. So for touching up this spot, I'm just going to use this diamond glaze. So diamond glaze is an adhesive I've been using more in the last few years, and it's like, I used matte glue a lot for this kind of work, but matte glue has been harder to find. So then I was looking around, and I started using diamond glaze. Jewelers use diamond glaze a lot for their work like this. So, and then it's also a dimensional adhesive, so it can be built up like a resin. It's not completely waterproof, but it's water resistant. So they don't recommend it for jewelry that you would be wearing all the time, like in showers or for swimming. But so I think of our mosaics, these kinds of mosaics, as a hybrid of jewelry and mosaic. So this, whenever I'm looking at adhesives that jewelers use, I'm thinking about how they would work for a mosaic. So diamond glaze works really well for these kinds of mosaics. And oh, this happened last time. Okay, so these little tiny mirrors are super thin. So I'm going to take my gloves off. I'm going to use this other cutter. Sometimes I can take my gloves off this way and then I save them for later. Not always. Sometimes my hands are sweaty or something and I can't get them off. Okay, so the Silberschnitt cutter has a thinner or smaller space between the wheels, so they can cut thinner material. So these mirrors are, I would say, a 1.5 millimeter thick. They're very, very thin. So this Silberschnitt can cut these, where the lip on it cannot, because that space between the wheels is much wider. It's a very it's not something that happens very often, so I wouldn't rush out to get this just because of that. And then my tweezer disappeared. I think it's over here. Yep, I found it. Okay, my tools are always disappearing. Okay, so this one is a little, I try to keep my tools clean, but sometimes they just end up collecting goop and, I don't know, glue, sticky stuff. Okay, so I'll drop this one back in that spot where we lost a piece, and I'll let that dry. So you don't need a lot of glue, the diamond glaze. A little bit does a lot. A dot does a lot. And then you can go back in with the diamond glaze and touch up any little gaps. Like, I kind of think of it as a resin. Oh, this piece is loose because I recut that one. So I'm going to re-glue it in. After I finished my last live, I wasn't sure about this corner piece, so I popped it out and was fussing with it. So, because I kind of was thinking I wanted this one up here to be square like this one, so they would match. So if you end up making this or something similar, you might want to consider that, because I kind of wish I would have made these two pieces that come together right here one whole square, so it would match down here on the bottom. I mean, I could cut this one in half and going this way to kind of mirror that, but in the end, there's going to be stuff layered over the top of it, so I'm not going to overthink that. But anyway, back to the diamond glaze. You can use the diamond glaze as a way to fill in any gaps, as kind of a resin clear grout little treatment. So I've been teaching my students to do this a lot, and it's just a quick way to blur. It's like a magic blurring tool. Just, it blurs these lines or these little imperfections that may be standing out to you. It makes them just blend in, and you can fill in these gaps without having to grout or do anything else. So I really like the diamond glaze for that. And if it doesn't fill in enough the first time, you can go back in and do more later. Just let it dry and then go back and do another layer. Okay, so then for around the next row, I decided I wanted to use these rhinestones. They are called, the color is called, it's Alexandrite. I think that's how you say it. But it's this beautiful kind of periwinkle purple. And oh, good, Louise. I'm just reading your comments again. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Good. I'm so glad you're spending your lunchtime here. Okay, so these rhinestones are, it's an oval shape. I think it's a 8 by 11 millimeter. And I'm going to use these around the perimeter here. And I'm going to lift them up a little bit so they overlap. I'm going to get closer so you can see everything nice and close. Okay, so they're gonna overlap a little bit of the square green, the green square that I put down previously. It's kind of this pistachio, trying to find my loose ones that I had before, but it's like this pistachio green that is iridescent, and I love that. I love anything iridescent. Okay, so I'm just gonna overlap the edge of those with this rhinestone. And whenever I'm, especially with stained glass, the edge might be a little, I mean, it's not too irregular, but I can see some spots like right here, and I'm just picky that way. So I of course notice these little inconsistencies, and I don't stress about it because I know when I put my next row down, I can overlap the rhinestone on the edge of the stained glass, and it just masks that subtle inconsistency. And I think I'm going to do another coil of clay on top of this one because my rhinestones aren't grabbing. They're just not settling in as well as I want them to. So I'm going to beef this up a bit. So my clay is even overlapping the glass a bit. These rhinestones are a little fussy for the tweezers. It's kind of a shape that doesn't want to be grabbed. Might just have to use my fingers for these. They're that in-between size of not so small, but still small enough that you might want your tweezer. Okay, that extra coil on top did the trick, so it's going a lot better. And then this extra adhesive, the extra clay, I'm not worrying about this right now because I know when I'm finished, I can just cut that down and away to clean that edge up if I'm not going to continue working and using that clay today. So then it looks really tidy. Or you could cut it away now and repurpose it over the top edge that we're doing. It makes me happy to cover up that spot because I kept looking at that rounded choppy piece. Okay, so I'm just gonna put these in, and then what do you all think about that kind of 3D center idea? I think it would be fun to kind of do a little bit more something like that in there, but I have a bunch of other things pulled together that would help fill in. So not just this piece, but some other findings, a little collection. I was kind of thinking, it reminded me of, I made this swan, I think it was last year, and I filled the swan in with a collection of different pieces of metal and flowers and a big leaf. So I'm kind of thinking like that scale for this. So any clay that smushes out on the side, I'm not stressing about that either because we can just push it in and tuck it away. And what you see is what you get. And that's what I love about working this way because so often with the traditional way of making mosaics, we have a lot of guesswork and we're kind of trusting this process and then grouting it at the end, and then it can just go a whole different direction, which can be heartbreaking or satisfying. So I've experienced both outcomes. when I used to grout everything. And I really like this way of working with the epoxy clay and using it as a grouted look. So by tinting it, we're creating a grout while using it as our adhesive. So this is what you see is what we get, and we don't have to do anything else to it. I mean, you could grout if you wanted to, but we don't have to. And if you just need a little touch up here and there to have more security, like what grout would provide from the top down, we could use the diamond glaze for that. And it doesn't compromise the sparkle and all the texture that we're building, like how grout can take away the glimmer and the sparkle, especially with beads and rhinestones. But not that, I mean, I used to grout everything, all beads, all rhinestones, everything. And I loved the way that it made it look antiqued and like it just kind of came up out of the earth. But that was just kind of a different time, and my work, my aesthetic has changed a lot. So I still love those pieces and the outcome of those pieces, but today I just have a different desire of different kind of work to make. So I really like this process of using the tinted clay as the adhesive and the grout at the same time. And it simplifies the work too. I still have kind of this, some people like grouting, but I always procrastinate when it comes to grouting. And I think it's just the unknown of what's going to happen and the risk that it feels there's some risk to it. But I do still grout some parts of my pieces. So these days I am using a lot more china. The size that I work today is way more friendly to one piece of china versus a big mosaic. Getting one piece of china to cover one big piece, you have to have a lot of it. So right now when I do use china, and I'll adhere all of these pieces into the wing using thin set, and then I will grout over the china. And this part, sometimes I do end up grouting some of the bigger areas. And recently I experimented with the clear grout, which I used on this piece, which I really liked the way the clear grout looks over the beads. So I'm kind of undecided about the clear. I might continue using the clear grout over some beaded area and then regular grout for over china, but I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure yet. I did the clear grout for a tutorial for that. It's in my membership. If any of you are in my membership and you're looking for that, it's in there. And if you're not in my membership and you're interested, there's a link to join on my website. And we do all kinds of fun tutorials and meetups and lots of these make-alongs and all kinds of stuff happening in there. So that tutorial's in there. But yes, I do think the clear grout looks really good over beads, and I need to finish more of my personal work to decide if I'm going to do that moving forward on my own work. I'm not totally sure yet, because I haven't been making a lot of my own work these days. I've been doing a lot more teaching and admin work, believe it or not. That's a lot of my time these days is on my computer and doing a lot of admin. But I think we're turning a corner here soon. We've got the new website is up and running, and I just started Mosaic Design School, and that's up and running now. So I think that my studio time will start to open up again in this month of February. But these make-alongs have been great for kind of forcing myself to sit down and work on some actual mosaics. So applying the epoxy yes, that's the way to do it. Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm just popping in on the comments. I might not see your questions as I'm working in the future. When I have somebody helping me with my lives, I will probably have a better system for seeing your questions or having some notification. Because when I'm working, I'm not looking at your comments. Okay, so we're almost to the end here, but this is a perfect example of what I would edit out in a quick little 1-minute reel. You wouldn't see me doing this, one at a time. But yes, mosaic takes some time, and mosaic time just moves faster. Before you know it, your hour is over and it just flies. But it's so worth it. It feels really calming, and just especially with so much technology, it's just a nice way to keep your hands busy and let your mind kind of recover from looking at screens. If you're like me, I spend plenty of time looking at screens. So it's just a nice way to give your brain some variety and texture, and also just having a chance to touch all these beautiful materials. Okay, so now I finished that, and I'm not sure what else I'm going to do yet. I'm going to leave, well, no, I'll clean this out. It'll just look so much better cleaned out, and then I can make decisions better too, having a cleaner canvas to look at. Usually this will just kind of peel out in one big chunk, but I really pressed this in, so it's a little bit of a rough cleanup. But this will all be glued over. If you had a little scraper tool, like one of those spatulas, that would be a great way to remove the clay too. But I generally just use my X-Acto knife for almost everything, and then my tools on my table, I have my embroidery scissors, my X-Acto knife, a Sharpie, and my nippers, and that's about it. I don't get too fancy beyond that, and I don't use any grinders. I don't wear gloves when I cut my china. People like to tell me to wear my gloves, but I need to be able to feel my material when I'm working. So I don't wear gloves unless I'm mixing epoxy clay. Okay, so that's all cleaned up. And if any of these rhinestones pop out later, I'll just reset them using the diamond glaze. And it's great for that because it's really strong and it's very fluid, so it doesn't add any extra space. Okay, so sorry, I was kind of going off screen. All right, so there's that step, and we're at 12:49. Yeah, time flies. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up by 1 o'clock. So I think I'll just pull together some of these other little fun things I was thinking about using. So I have a whole bunch of these flowers in different colors, and I probably wouldn't use the green, but any one of these would work. And I don't think I wouldn't use all of them because I want some variety. So probably not the purple, since we just used that kind of periwinkle color. And I don't mind the yellow, but in pink, we already have a lot of pink. But I'm kind of leaning towards the pink since it's more of a Valentine. I don't know. The yellow is still a contender. Tell me in the comments what you like, yellow or pink. But I'll just wait and see. I'll just put this aside and think on it, and while I pull together some other stuff. And then I have this little bowl this is an old porcelain flower that broke off from a bigger one that was like something like this. So that could be kind of tucked behind it. I have a bunch of these ceramic flowers. We could put some of these in, blue and pink. This one's kind of been beaten up a little bit. If it was missing one petal, maybe I would still use it, but it's missing two, so I probably don't want to use that one. Oh, I like this leaf. That would fill in there. And so I think a lot about textures, and what I love about bringing in these metal components is that it just adds a lot of variety. So we have mirror, the pearl, the pink pearl, and then the stained glass and the rhinestone. And now we're bringing in some metal and then the ceramic. This is a matte ceramic porcelain, and this one is a glaze, so it's a bit shinier. And then this flat back kind of cabochon has a pearl look to it. So I'm always thinking about textures and mixing it up. And this, maybe the yellow comes in from this one. And then I love anything on a wire. It's just really fun to use because you can tuck it in and just even have it kind of coming off a little bit. So I have a few things on wire, and these are some of my favorites. I only have a little bit of these left, and I cannot find them again. I bought these from, if any of you remember, Beads by Sandy. Sandy Shore in, I think, Austin, Texas. I got a bunch of these from him originally, and they're dwindling away. I like this one. So I'm just going to pull a bunch of this stuff out and see. Maybe I use some, maybe I don't. And let's see, what else? I think that, I do have these flowers on wire. I like to paint these flowers too. If they come white, you can paint them with spray paint, and they look so good. That's what I did to, let's see, this one here. Spray paint, it's a little rough, but here's another spray painted one. So you can customize your own colors by painting anything. You could buy a bunch of brass pieces like this and then paint them to get a look like this. So you can customize your own pieces. I also like these pieces too. I think these are softer. They're not a glass, definitely not waterproof, but that would be really fun to use. Okay, so I'm gonna just dump all this out and I think I'll just kind of start with my biggest pieces. And then if I have extra space around to fill in, I might just do that with some loose china pieces. Yeah, I like how that's fitting right there. So I'm just gonna start putting bigger pieces of epoxy down to glue them in with. And what's nice about epoxy clay is that you can build it up to, you're sculpting at the same time. So you can build it up thicker and make things stand up higher in some spots than other spots. So if you wanted this to settle in further, then you wouldn't build this up as high. If you want it standing up higher, then you just keep building. You can build the epoxy clay up as high as you want. I shared a studio with an artist, Caprice Glazer in St. Paul, Minnesota. She's still, I think she might be in her 80s now, but she's still doing open studios and selling her work. But she did giant sculptures I know she did one for a veterinarian clinic, and the whole entire thing she made out of epoxy sculpt. and she was mixing huge batches of it in a food processor, which blew me away because I didn't know anyone else using epoxy sculpt that way then. So you can build your clay up as thick as you want. There's no limit. And I love how this fit in there so perfectly. Looks like it was meant to be. There's all kinds of little serendipities like that when you're making mosaics. Things just fall into place. And then this leaf looks really nice like that. I am going to fill in behind it though, because it's going to be hard to fill in any open spaces when it's enclosed. So I'm touching this clay a lot today, more than I normally would. Normally I would put my gloves on when I'm rolling it in my hand this way, but the pressure's on. So I'm going to tuck this in like that. And then I'm just going to fill in the rest of this space. So if you're sensitive to products, I would recommend wearing your gloves when you're handling the clay like this. It does say non-toxic, but you know, people can be allergic to all kinds of things that are non-toxic, especially if you're exposing yourself to it a lot. So I think it's best to wear gloves and just minimize direct contact with it. I keep that top of mind, but I don't overthink it either. I don't let it like steal my fun when I'm creating. I don't want to, be too obsessive about it, but I do avoid touching it too much because I did end up developing an allergy to epoxy sculpt, which I used for about 15 years, and epoxy clay is working really well for me. And I don't want to develop a issue with epoxy clay next. So that reason too, I wear my gloves as much as I can. Okay, so that's all filled in. Now I can just start plugging things in, and you can move them around too. So even if I put something in, I don't have to leave it there. So I might just, before really committing, I might just kind of lay it out loosely. And I love layering, kind of stacking things in, so that works really well there. So I'm going to commit that piece. This one I'm not sure yet, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And then that one looks really good there. So I'm not overthinking it. And I also know I can layer. So I can put something inside of this little flower right there. And that's too big right there. And it matches too much with that one. So I'm not going to, probably just won't use this one today. I'm trying not to rush. I wanted to keep this under an hour today, and we're already at an hour. Okay, so I'm going to put this one here. So if you have little trays of findings and doodads, things that you've saved up over the years, and you're just not really sure what to do with them, this is a great project to use them up on. Let's see. I might have to get more of my stuff. That's not gonna work. I'm gonna go grab a couple more. I thought I pulled everything that I needed, but I'm just gonna grab a couple more trays of stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah. I forget what I have until I find myself in projects like this, and then I start thinking about these random trays of, like, I just have so many. What's nice about trays and big flat pieces like this is that you can just dump all of your random stuff in it, and it looks so pretty waiting to be used. So I just kind of have random little collections like this around my studio, and this is just a plastic I don't know, serving tray that was probably used at like a wedding in the 50s or something. Who knows? But I'm just gonna grab any. I'm looking for smaller kind of pieces right now. This little squirrel, that's cute. So I'm done with that tray, and now I'll move on to this little cup. Has all kinds of fun stuff in it. That might be a good one. These are probably too big. These you can cut in half too, though. You can cut the metal pieces. They might look like they're really, durable, but usually you can cut them and alter them. Oh, this little rose is kind of fun. There's some other sizes in here. And I'm not sure where these came from. I think I found these at CJ. Yes, I found these at CJS Sales in New York last spring, and I was so excited because I love these little rosette flowers, but there was only one little bag of them, and they're all a little different too, but those are really fun. Oh, this is a good one too, this bigger one. So I'll probably keep working on this after I stop today, just to really make sure that it's all in the right place. And then I shared last time that when I have to go pick up my kids from school or take them to an activity, I'll take my mosaic with me and I'll just set it kind of like by the dashboard, not in a place where it's too distracting where I could, cause an accident, but I set it in my car where I can just kind of gaze at it while I'm at a stoplight or drive, because then I'm thinking about it while I'm doing other things and I'm not over analyzing. And I think that's just such a great way to be around our work without letting it consume us. And even when I'm doing dishes, I will set it on the windowsill and just look at it while I'm putting things away or washing dishes, and then we can like subconsciously be thinking about our work and our choices or options without over analyzing. Because I think when we're just sitting in our studio and we've had our nose in a project for hours and hours, it's easy to overthink it and be kind of stuck in be paralyzed with decisions. So think about ways that you can bring your mosaic with you, especially smaller pieces like this. They're so portable and easy to move around. So I'm not sure if this is where it's going to end. I don't think this is where it's going to end up. I'm going to keep playing with it and find some. I think I need more color in here and sweetness. Like, I'm not sure if the metal, I feel like the metal is making it look too heavy. I want it to look like dessert and light and lovely, like a Valentine. So that's my plan. It's a lot more textured than I think I need maybe some bigger pieces in here. Like, this is looking a little too cluttered. So I'm gonna look for some bigger, fuller pieces to pull in here. But let me know what you think. Okay, so I'm gonna say goodbye. I do have, let me go back to my view. Okay, here I am. I do have a little heart kit listed in my shop. So I mentioned I have a limited number available. If any of you want to do this project, I will try to make the little findings as close as possible to what I end up using so that you can make one just like this if you're interested. It's in my shop. If I did set up trigger words for Shopify and Instagram, but it's not working. We're not over there. So if you go to my website, shop.sharafrank.com, it's listed in there, the kit. And then if you want the free supply guide, you can find that in my bio too. So thank you so much for joining me today and helping me navigate this new tech setup and joining me for my first live on YouTube. This was super fun, and I'll keep you posted on where the project ends up. I'll share the finished results on all my accounts. So have a great day, everyone. I'm not sure how to stop this. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'll have to read through your comments real quick. Oh, it's so fun to see your thank you. Great. Okay. I should have figured out how to stop this.